told where it is with a big yellow dot around it,
Yeah.
I think that's trying to influence me.
So have we got a consensus on this then? Because I think there's some kind of structures on the far side of the moon.
There may well be. I mean, it'd be the perfect place to watch Earth
Yeah.
from, wouldn't it?
How about you, Jed?
I conclude with that.
You conclude with that?
Yeah, I think that probably is reasonably
Same
true.
on Mars. From the ESA satellites, there was before they started manipulating the data, the original photographs there, before he unclogged it. And if you look at it very closely, there are like squares there. Don't know what they are, but there's definitely something there. If you look at the satellite imaging, before they start, like Dale says, messing with the Photoshop, which quite like Dale says, it could actually cause anomalies, couldn't it?
And if they are building structures, are they ours or are they theirs?
Well, judging by what they could appear to be, they look closer to the Mayan-type temples, you know, or pyramid-type things, rather than something that we'd build, which you would imagine to be to have more of a technological look to it, or use more metals or something. Whereas these things look as though perhaps they're the remnants of something that has been there for an awful long time.
So you think they could just be remnants, albeit, let's say, that some ancient race that had technology to get to the moon? Do you think that they're in current use then? What would your guess be on that? Are they ruins?
Well, I mean, presumably, if they were in use, the fact that there are a number of, probably tens of thousands of large enough telescopes in private hands, you know, that you see like Patrick Moore has got in his back garden, where you'd be able to actually see, you know, alien craft taking off from the moon, or alien vehicles moving around the moon, or maybe alien signals being sent, which you can pick up on your shortwave radio, or you know, via some other system. But we're not seeing any of that.
Well, back to Mars, on the Mars rovers, Mars rovers 1 and 2, they've actually brought a lot of photographic evidence back with some very interesting stuff. You know, like the sleeper, what came out like that square sleeper looked like a sleeper. We don't know if it's a sleeper, but why would you get something what looks man-made in a square? You don't get it naturally, do you?
Yeah.
In time. And the solar stand there, and the sleeper sticking out, something like 5 foot long in a square, which is very unusual, isn't it?
And then there's the one that looks like a statue of a human
yeah,
figure.
there's a statue.
The classic figure in Sidonia.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your view on that? And do you think it's just a random
I think it's just
rock
one of those
formation?
random things.
Well,
I mean, it looks very convincing to me.
I mean, in the 18th century, Herschel was absolutely convinced that there was a large civilization on Mars, and it was proven by the fact they had canals, because, well, if you want to move some coal from Newcastle to London, you need a canal.
And if you look now with
So
Mars,
it seems logical,
with
doesn't
Mars
it?
imaging, it looks like half the people said there's been water in it, because you see all the pebbles all
Well,
out.
the latest news out that there is water
There
there,
has been
isn't there?
water out there, and there still is water.
A large ocean at some point.
Yeah. And what do you think of the, you know, because they tried to, allegedly, they've tried to find water on the moon.
And then suddenly India comes up and finds it.
In order to try and find it, they've crashed
a satellite,
into it, and then apparently we were told that you would be able to see the plume through a bog standard telescope.
And what happens? Nothing.
Yeah.
Well, Patrick Moore couldn't see it. Yeah, he couldn't see it.
He didn't see it. But you've seen on the internet with the little UFOs hovering around the crater before the satellite hit.
Yeah, that's true. Have you seen the piece of video where you actually see a circular object which judging by it, you know, above the surface of the moon, you know, travelling for a good 5 or 6 seconds, just like you'd view an aircraft from a high altitude. Well, what is that? Okay, it could be a big rock in space where you've got the sun behind it, it's casting a round shadow, but it's perfectly round.
Right.
Which is a little unusual.
And then suddenly, only a month ago, the Indians come out and say, yeah, there's water on the moon. So NASA spends all this money, can't find anything. Indians come along with stuff like, oh yeah, there's water. What's it all about?
Yeah, and then
well, they're better at corner shops as well.
Well, my theory on the moon, on this search for water on the moon, is that there's a little bit of a secret squabble going on between whoever is in charge of the moon, and I think they wanted to send a warning shot, and I think that's what this thing was. And I think they've launched it, and the cover story was, well, actually, we're looking for water, but they're actually taking a pot shot, and whoever is in control of the moon, ETs or whatever, have gone, oh, here comes NASA, and they've popped it out the air, and they've disabled it, so nothing hit the moon, I don't think.
But they never answered it. Why? They said, "Oh, there's going to be this big blast of stuff," and nothing.
It was going to be miles high. In fact, there were even people saying that you might be able to see it with a naked eye.
Correct. So why Dale did they not see any dust coming up?
Well,
this
is the other thing as well, and that is that, you know, does it seem a logical thing to do where you've got this civilization that's able to move between star systems, and you start chucking rocks at them to annoy them?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound a very sensible thing to do if these people could potentially be hostile.
Well, I completely agree with that, but there are many cases. For example, the Milton Torres case of 1958, where he was ordered to shoot down the UFO moving around over Ipswich. And I think the military have this gung-ho attitude.
But do you think it's to grab the UFO more than to shoot it down?
Yes, I would agree.
You know, it's about acquisition rather than destruction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think these orbs that appear around crop circles, I think they're trying to catch whatever they are.
Yeah. I mean, well, you know, on the way downstairs, we were talking briefly, and it's only recently I've become aware of the fact that in the 1940s there was a major attempt to shoot down a UFO over Los Angeles, where there was 1,500 shells fired at it, and it remained in position. There's actually videotape. It's clearly lit up.
It's a black and white
by searchlights.
Yes.
And it's held in the searchlight. And after firing 1,500 shells, they couldn't even bring it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
I've heard that, you know, the Roswell event, that was some kind of shoot down, or perhaps an advanced form of radar system that interfered
well, who
with
knows? Maybe our radar is the equivalent of a death ray to a UFO from another planet. You know, which just disabled all their complete flight systems, and since then they've learned by it.
Okay. Now, let's move on to 9/11, because that's a whole.
Let's move on to global warming. Now we've got some backup.
Now, John Lear's claims on global warming on 9/11 a few years ago seemed maybe a little bit implausible, but I'm coming on side with him on 9/11. I mean, are we all in agreement that passenger airliners didn't cause those two towers to disintegrate?
I think that the passenger airliners did hit the towers. Whether they were controlled or flown is another matter. Okay. I think that the towers were deliberately brought down, that they had to fall, and they had to fall a particular way, and that was pre-designed. But as far as, you know, John Lear's view of it is concerned, you know, there may be many ways of making that happen.
I'll just fill the audience in on what John Lear's view is on 9/11. He believes that there was an energy weapon fired from space onto the towers, which basically made them almost sort of dissolve. There's some kind of reaction that our known scientists don't know about, and turned them to powder effectively, and affected many other things around there. And he also believes that what we saw on television when we saw the planes going in, that was a combination of CGI effects, so that, you know, some of the live images that you saw were actually a plane had been superimposed on an image, and a combination of CGI and actual holograms projected into the sky, and no actual plane hit the tower. That the hole that you see in the tower that the plane made, there was a whole lot of explosives that caused that hole, and the hologram or the CGI image was put on top of that, because apparently there was only 2 live cameras broadcasting when the planes hit the tower from 2 helicopters, Chopper 5 and 7, I think it was. Every other image that you and I have seen of the plane going into the tower wasn't live, so it could have been manipulated.
It's very hard to say.
But I mean, if you're going to be a government and you're going to go to the trouble of doing something at that major level to have a good reason to go and attack our terrorists that exist in the Middle East, particularly in Iraq, although there's no connection between Iraq and actually 9/11 anyway, it appears.
Not at all.
Or Saddam Hussein, there's no connection between them. But the point is that, you know, if you're going to do something like that, it doesn't seem a big deal to go and smash 2 aeroplanes into a building as part of the effect. But it is unusual that we can't find the engines to these planes.
Yeah.
Well, you can find the passport, though.
Yes, you can find a passport.
You can find the passport, no problem at all.
That's not made of titanium. That's why you can find it.
Of the dead terrorists who then turned out to be alive.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
alive, yeah. And there are
who
six
don't
of
seem
them
to have actually logged in when they boarded
and
the
you
plane
ask,
anyway.
you ask 100% of people how many buildings fell in New York that
Yeah.
day, and what would they say?
I think most people would say 2.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
how
they
many
would.
fell on that day?
I think sort of 3.5 at least, wasn't it?
3 fell on
Yeah,
that day.
yeah.
And
And
there's-
there was
there's-
another one that was seen
yeah.
to be sliced in half as well.
Building
But-
7,
Yeah.
never even hit by an aircraft, suddenly it falls, free fall again. Just unbelievable, isn't it?
And then large
Unbelievable.
amounts of gold being removed from the national the Treasury depositories in New York underneath those buildings before the plane's anywhere near it.
Yeah, there was moving the gold out, wasn't there?